Oh, shoot. Oh, damn, I need headphones. Hold on. Sorry, guys, I can't tell if you can hear me or not. I'm like super mess. I wish there was a function that could tell me who's in here. Can you guys hear me? Will you guys like type something if you can hear me? Oh, you guys can't hear me. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense that you're not typing anything. Will someone type something if you can hear me? Hello? Hello? God damn it. Hello? Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Jocelyn. All right. So, forgot you were a mod. I forgot about mods. That's really funny. All right. So, let me, you guys, I'm trying to do this in between a bunch of other stuff. Let's see here. I'm going to, let me pull up our prompt. I read "Talk to You Soon" in the prompt. In the last announcement, and yeah, I thought I read "Love You Too," and I got stressed that I was confused and wrote something I shouldn't have wrote. Let's see here. All right. So we have 3 people in here. Anthony, are you in here? Can you type yes if you're in here? Anthony is my good buddy. If you click on his profile, can you click on profiles? No, you'll see a video of me beating him up with a fluorescent light bulb. Back when I was like, I don't know how old. I was like 19, 20. Okay, so let's read I'm going to read the prompt, yeah? In his paper, You Can't Trust a Philosopher, Richard Fumerton, lays out 3 instances in which you are not obligated to take disagreement as evidence that your beliefs are unjustified. However, as Fumerton puts it, this takes us out of the frying pan and into the fire, right? So the analogy is reading something like, out of the frying pan and into the fire. So like if you're getting cooked in a frying pan and you like, oh shoot, it's hot, right? You jump out of the frying pan like, oh, thank God I escaped the frying pan. But then there's a fire, the fire itself is underneath. That's like worse than being in a frying pan. Yeah, he's saying, okay, so this takes us out of this disagreement problem, but into a deeper problem. So if most philosophers suffer from some cognitive malfunction, and almost all hold false philosophical beliefs, how can we take our own philosophical positions to be reliable? Yeah. So in this assignment, you need to attempt to solve this puzzle, and this is definitely a puzzle. Your paper must be between 5.5 and 7 pages, double-spaced, and will be scored according to the following: paper structure, engagement, effectiveness of your argument. This paper will also need to be turned in, yada, yada, yada. Okay. For midnight on Thursday. Let's see here. All right. So, okay, we have 5 people watching. You guys can type and say what's up so I know who's in here. Or not, or just stay quiet until later like last time. Yeah. Okay. So I am going to not read You guys, if you guys like this topic, you guys should really go ahead and read the Thomas Kelly paper that's in here. Nature of evidence in general. But it's I guess it's become like you could say it's like the definitive paper on sticker stancing. Yeah. Okay, so I am going to start. I'm going to start by reading just this very last section. Okay. This very last section holds the puzzle that I'm asking you guys to solve. Yeah. So starting at number 7, section 7. It does not take long to see that we have traded one problem for another. Yeah. And so on the assignment from last week, where I asked you guys the 2 questions, right? What's up, Adrian? You first got to say, what's up? Oh, you're too young for the what's up meme. I guess it was a meme even before memes were there around. I asked you, okay, so why don't I need to take disagreement serious? And then what's the puzzle that arises from the answer to this question? Most of you got this answer correct, the first question. Why don't I need to take disagreements in philosophy as reason to suspend belief? Right? Yeah, most of you got this correctly. Yeah. So after we discover a plausible defeater for the potential defeater. So a defeater is like a defeater. We also call these knockdown arguments. So if I believe that the Earth is flat, and Oscar comes up to me and gives me an argument that I can't refute, right? Or an argument that completely defeats my position that the world is flat. We call Oscar's argument a defeater. We also call it a knockdown argument, right? Okay. So we have discovered a possible defeater for the potential defeater presented by the discovery of disagreement over philosophical propositions. So over our philosophical conclusions, right? But it's not just philosophy, it's other highly contested intellectual propositions. So like he brings up, you guys are probably too young to remember anything about George Bush. But politics concerning the way we engage with the Middle East after 9/11, right? This is sort of the this is the political example he uses the entire time. I mean, throughout the entire paper, right? Most people disagrees with them. This is a political matter, but remember that our political beliefs should be, right, if they're consistent, coming from philosophical principle, right? And we'll get to that notion of philosophical principle in a second when I propose some potential answers to our prompt. Yeah. So we have a potential defeater for all this BS conversation we've been having, right? I can discount the fact that another philosopher, for example, disagrees with me by reasonably concluding that philosopher is probably unreliable when it comes to philosophical truth. If I have reason to believe that you are unreliable when it comes to adding numbers, I will not take the fact that you came to a different sum to present much counter evidence to my belief that I have added the figures correctly. Here we go. I have overwhelming philosophers, even most really good philosophers, remember Lewis, are unreliable when it comes to arriving at philosophical truth. I know that most of them have false beliefs. I know that because I know that, at least typically, most philosophical views are minority opinions. Each positive philosophical view, so by positive you mean like you're by positive it means that you're putting the view forward. You're not just saying, oh, you're not saying the negation of the view. So if I have a philosophical position that externalism is wrong, I'm not putting a philosophical view forward, right? I'm just negating it, right? And that's kind of important if you really want to understand what's being said here, right? But every time, like I put forward a philosophical position, right? Each philosophical view is usually such that most philosophers think that it is false. And there is typically nothing approaching a consensus on the correct alternative. Therefore infer that most philosophical views are false. This is strong reason for me to think that philosophers are not reliable, even if I am not precisely sure what cognitive defect is that leads to their unreliability. Okay, so let me okay. Let me try to draw this. All right, bear with me. It may suck drawing this. All right, let's dissect this paragraph so far. So let's say A, B, C, D, E, ... forever, right? These are each one of these letters. Each one of these letters is going to represent a philosophical position. Okay. Now let's assume that none of these philosophical positions, none of these are consistent with each other. So if A is true, then B can't be true, C can't be true, D can't be true, etc. If I think that D is true, then I have to think these guys are wrong. So here's one philosopher, he thinks A. One philosopher over here thinks B. One philosopher over here thinks C. Let's see here. D. E. Right. Here we go. There's Little Wayne, philosopher. He thinks that's not funny. Right. Okay. Not funny. Satanism is not a joke. Big F on that one. Okay. This philosopher thinks F. Okay. So that positive philosophy talk. Okay. All right. The positive view that person, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? I know that it always seems like trying to make the conversation more complicated than it has to be. But I want to explain what it means by positive view, a possible way out of this puzzle by pointing out something about positive negative views. So person A, because he has the positive view that A is the case, person A also thinks that not B is true. Okay? So he thinks that she is wrong. 6 also believes not B. 5 also believes not B. 4 also believes not B. 3 also believes not B. The only one that thinks that B is true is philosopher 2. She has a view that is in the minority. Most people do not think B. Yeah? Now, the reason why we say positive view is because if we look at the negative views that people hold, well, yeah, it is the majority opinion that not B is the case. That's the majority philosophical view. So when he says positive, we're talking about when you put the theory out there, right? So like, let's say B is actually the view about knowledge that, let's see here, that knowledge is always context relative, right? Knowledge is a sort of relative term. This, if you were to go out and poll all the philosophers, Fumerton is saying most of these philosophical positions, like the one I just said, most of the philosophers don't agree with it. Yeah? They all think this is BS. Now, when we go back to like the math question, right? And we look at like, okay, the experts in mathematics, and we have a simple proposition in mathematics, like 2 plus 2 equals 4. Yeah. Most of the mathematicians are going to believe that this is true. And anyone that disagrees with this, because they are so much in the minority here, we do not consider them a threat to our belief, right? When people think they have reason to not believe 2 plus 2 equals 4. There's so few of them. The matter of consensus is so not on their side that we're not forced to abandon our position on the matter just because they disagree with us. See, and this is very analogous here in this situation. If we're person 1 and philosopher 2 holds that B, am I no longer allowed to believe not B or positively A because person 2, she believes B? He's going to say no, right? Because there's no expert consensus positively about B over here, right? No one else believes in B except for her. So then why would I also believe in B? If B was something to really take serious, well, then we would have consensus about it. But the really shitty part about philosophy and political science and fashion and art is that what? No one disagrees with each other. In fact, most of these intellectual pursuits, almost every position seems to be a minority position. So when we're person A, she thinks B, he thinks E, he thinks D, she thinks F. We don't have to consider any of these positions because no one else does, at least not a significant amount of people believe in it. Yeah? Why don't we have to believe? Why don't we have to take the disagreement between philosophers serious? Well, because every philosopher that holds a position that everyone else thinks is wrong. And if everyone else thinks that your position's wrong, then why would we believe you? Right? Okay. He calls us a defeater. Yeah? So when Van Inwagen is talking to David Lewis or when Elgin is talking to David Lewis, and they go, yeah, I mean, you're really smart. I respect you, right? I respect the coherence of your worldview. Yeah, I mean, just because you're a philosopher, it's just in virtue of that, it's most likely that you're wrong no matter what you were saying, right? Someone tell me if they understand that. Adrian, do you understand what I'm saying? We don't have to. We don't have to take awesome, Elizabeth. We don't have to take disagreement between philosophical peers serious because our peers are not reliable. There's no reliable consensus, right? That they're right, right? Not everyone's going to agree, right? If you came into our class and you thought you had really good reason to believe that 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4 on our arithmetic languages, yeah, I want to take you serious. Out there for me to take it as relevant, right? All right. So here's the problem. So never mind, I got it. Okay, awesome. What if there are more? Okay, Oscar, you are about to crack the Da Vinci Code here. Right. Yes, things would be very different. Right. Things would be the premise of his defeater for the defeater of disagreement is 100%. Yeah, if that premise is wrong, then this defeater doesn't work. If there actually is consensus in philosophy, right, then I mean, yeah, then you got to fucking take that consensus serious, especially when that consensus isn't on your side. Yeah. Jocelyn, would you say it is like seeing the situation a little differently? No, for sure. For sure. No, it is for sure. So like all my beliefs are about me seeing the world in some sort of way. Right. It's about me seeing the world in some kind of a way. Yeah. So like if all these fools, and that's kind of why I drew B, that's kind of why I draw them in their head, right? So like everything I think, the way I interpret my sensation gets imaged in my mind. That's why we call it imagination. Yeah. I'm on my 10-minute break at work watching this. That is so freaking funny, Lupita. That's really funny. I hope well, you should probably chill out, right? If you're on your 10-minute break. This is probably not chill. Um, yeah, I mean, if you think A, it's because A is out in the world, right? The A in the head is the image, the imagination of the the only way that A is actually true is if there's the world, if A is there. Yeah. Here's the fact, and here's the image of A or the belief of A in your head. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So if all these fools think the world is so different, then why would I trust them in the first place? Why would I take their disagreement to mean anything to me? Yeah. There's a marker cap for this. All right. So, God dang it. I guess this marker's dead. All right. So let's continue. All right. I therefore, so I'm going to start. I mean, I'm going to start at I can kind of in the middle. I can. Right there. I can therefore infer that most philosophical views are false. This is a strong reason for me to think that philosophers are not reliable, even if I am not sure precisely what the cognitive defect is that leads to their unreliability. And he makes a very good case for the unreliability, of our cognition. Yeah, when he talks about, especially when he talks about how like philosophers from Brown tend to think like they're professors, and that people who study under Seller end up being end up believing everything the seller believes. Yes, okay. When I was reading, I was a little confused because of the wording of the text. Yes, yeah, and that's why the positive talk, right? This is, yeah, this is a bit why I picked this text for the B9 because it really is. This is like, this text, this kind of a text right here. It's not like introduction to biology or introduction to sociology. It's like you guys are reading real academic text. And so a bit of it's, yeah, they say words that like positive view be really hard for you to just on first read understand what a positive view is supposed to mean. Yeah, and when you start collecting those kinds of words that you kind of understand but you kind of don't, when you start racking them up over a period of time, then you're like, what the did I read? Yeah. Um, yeah. Okay. So the difficulty here, of course. So here's like the puzzle. Okay. The difficulty, of course, is that I also know that I am one of those philosophers whose reliability is under attack. This is the reason for thinking, or this reason for thinking that my opponents are probably cognitively defective is also a reason for thinking that I am probably cognitively defective. Okay, I'm going to read that again. The difficulty, of course, is that I also know that I am one of those philosophers whose reliability is under attack. This reason for thinking that my opponents are probably cognitively defective is also reason for thinking that I am probably cognitively defective. So remember, we're not in this text, we're not pointing out that any particular philosopher is wrong. What we are saying, right? What we are saying is that it is most likely all of these guys, for the most part, except for one at the max, is wrong. Yeah. But if we are person one, we are also on this board of likely being wrong. Fuck, right? Not good. Excuse my French. I'm going to stop cussing in case you guys have kids in the room. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Kind of sorry. All right. This reason for thinking that my opponents are probably cognitively defective is also a reason for thinking that I am probably cognitively defective. And now I face again the task of trying to argue plausibly that I am an exception to the rule. To do so, I am back to the task of trying to convince you that you and others suffer from specific defects that explains your unreliability, defects that I have somehow managed to avoid. Okay, what's the problem with this? This is the puzzle, right? And it's almost gone almost to a full circle of the text that we've read in class. Wouldn't it kind of be like an issue because of how differently the philosophers view the world or situation? Yes, 100%. So like we don't so according to Fumerton, we don't have to take them serious at all because they all disagree. They're all minority positions, right? None of them are in a position to have the majority opinion on their side. Yeah. But what's the problem with that? If most of them are probably wrong, most of these philosophers are probably wrong, and I don't have to take them serious, why is that a problem for me? Why is this a problem for me? Yeah, but what about what's on their mind? So so Justin, why is it a problem for you though? Then you yes, Elizabeth, 100% right. And why can't I take myself serious, Elizabeth? What's likely true? Yeah, 100%. That is 100% the case. Yeah. No one agrees with me either, right? So why if they can't take me serious, what sort of special evidence do I have that they don't that I should be taken serious because other people are going to question you? Yes, 100%, Adrian. That's exactly right. Right. It's not that they're going to be questioning me. It's that I'm just as likely wrong as they are in virtue of me being a philosopher. It's like everyone thinks differently and say that I am in a situation I would consider to be a minority. Yeah, 100%. Right. Does he think everyone is cognitive? No. No. So it's not that he thinks that everyone is. He just thinks that, well, I'll tell you what he really thinks in a second. I'll tell you what he really thinks in a second. I had a student actually a summer ago or two. Was it last summer? I think it was 2 summers ago. He actually emailed Fumerton and asked him that kind of question. And I'll tell you what he says in a second, if I remember to. Yeah. Um, I don't know how serious he takes this puzzle that he's given us, but it is a puzzle, right? Um, yeah, it's a big problem, right? And almost as if I need to prove why. Yes, right. But okay, John. Okay, okay. I'm gonna read it. No one type anything out. Don't type it. Don't send anything. Okay. So Jocelyn said, and it's almost as if I need to prove why, or I need to prove why I am reliable or right to get out of this puzzle, according to him. Now, why is that a problem? If you could do that, then what? You're right. And so, Jocelyn, while someone responds, I'm gonna reread what you said. Yeah, it depends on the evidence. So it does. And I face again the task of trying to argue. So why does he say again? I face again the task of trying to argue plausibly that I am an exception to the rule. To do so, I am back. Here we go. We're going back to the task of trying to convince you that you suffer from a specific defects that explain your unreliability, defects that I have somehow managed to avoid. Yeah. Why does he use this language about now? All right, now I got to go back and do X, Y, and Z, and it is going to have to do with evidence. 100%, Elizabeth. He has to himself. that everyone has different interpretations, and he has to explain himself all over again, right? Yeah. So whatever evidence is presented, right? Whatever evidence is presented, then it's still going to be one of the problems. He's still going to be interpreted as the one with the bias no matter what, right? If he was able to give that evidence, if he was able to give that weird psychological evidence, that weird cognitive evidence that explains, my marker's already dying. That didn't help. God dang it. That explains, damn, that was so fast, man. If he could give the evidence that shows how or why, the evidence that explains where all these people came up with their false beliefs, and a story about how he evaded that defect, well, then we assume that everyone would what? Everyone would eventually become heirs. Oops, I just made the world an heir. Yeah, everyone would be heirs. It doesn't seem to be that kind of a type that would persuade defective people to believe the truth. Yeah. That may be within the puzzle of being defective. Yeah. Have you guys ever had your methed out uncle or cousin? Have you guys ever tried to talk to them? Right? It's what kind of sense can you make to this kind of a person? And if I'm so full of wishful thinking or indoctrination or just philosophical bias in general, yeah, what makes you think that the truth and the fact that it might not should scare the shit out of you, that you're not the one with the bias, and the evidence just can't get past your bias? That sort of special evidence is something that's left to be found, or at least potentially. Yeah. For those of you who think that he's right, would it even be possible for anyone to? Yeah, that's the question, Oscar. Right, that's the question. Yeah, so he gives us this notion of self-knowledge. Where is this thing? Maybe, oh yeah, here we go. So on 103. So on 103, he produces a situation in which he can potentially not be so defective according to the bias, right? So he says, well, it is easy to say knowledge than a great many other academics I know, and I think that self-knowledge gives me a better and more neutral perspective on a host of philosophical and political issues. So he thinks that, well, maybe I have enough understanding about the bias trends in belief formation that because I know that I'm in this, because I know about myself that I'm in this weird contagious cesspool of belief adoption through osmosis, essentially, that I can potentially not succumb to the bias and analyze the evidence in a more neutral, and you can even say a more natural kind of way. And so, like, when you think about like corporations doing biases training, right? Unconscious bias training. What they do is they send people into they send like expert psychologists and stuff like this, and they teach people about the potential unconscious biases you may have, whether they be racist or sexist, right? And they say, hey, like some, and we don't even know it, it's subconscious, right? And that the more you're aware of these potential biases that you may be happening, the more possible it is, not the more likely, but the more possible it is that you know that you don't succumb, right? And so maybe one answer to this puzzle is this idea that maybe the more self-knowledge I have about the way I tend to adopt beliefs, the more neutral I can be to the evidence, right? But Oscar, what do you think the problem with this is? Besides this being based off of extremely shoddy science, okay, besides that, right? Um, there's a more philosophical, or like there's a more principled objection to this. Besides, the science just doesn't support anything like this. What do you guys think that is? What could be a problem with that? How could this self-knowledge not get us out of this puzzle? So Jocelyn, you're like head, or the nail on the head every time, but you need a little bit more. Jane, you mean the more you reflect on how you think, the more you can analyze. Yes, that's right. That's right. And I don't think that anyone is going to object to that portion of it, Jane. Right. But what's the problem? But what's the problem with this? So he says it. Uh, where does he say it? So Jane, you're 100% right. Yeah, no one I mean, that's why you guys are in this kind of class, right? This class is literally meant to do exactly what you said, Jane. What's the problem here with this self-knowledge somehow being able to avoid bias? This is like that. This is really a tough ass question. But Jane, you're on the right track. Think back to Kelly and Cornbliff. Yes. Yes, this idea is inside our first reading, and it's in our second reading. It's also in the third reading. It is not really in this reading. Yeah, right. 100%, Elizabeth. How do we know that we're reliable? Right. So, like, you can strip me, wash off all the biases. I would say that whether you can wash off all the biases altogether, but that just because you're not biased doesn't mean that you're correct. That's one very that's one very big objection to this. I would say whether we know it or not, we are always subconsciously influenced by other factors. Right. Yeah. So, and that is another objection and lends right back into Oscar's sort of claim or idea that, yeah, I mean, okay. Have you guys ever physically seen a bias? No. I mean, this is a way we make sense of the way people behave, right? It's not an object. Biases aren't objects. This cup is an object. This marker is an object, right? These are all objects. You see nothing but object, and then you make sense of it with ideas of biases and physics and all this sort of stuff. These are, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's super conceptual. So when you want to, right, you have potential bias X, Y, and Z. You have potential bias X, Y, and Z. Yeah, or at least you're told X, Y, and Z. And let's say you get rid of these biases towards X, Y, and Z, or biases from X, Y, and Z. Yeah, does that mean that your other subconscious, right? Remember, every time we talk about subconscious, we're almost always talking about stuff that we don't realize, right? It's almost like it's like the default theory we posit when we don't know how to make sense of something. Oh shit, it's in my subconscious, right? I subconsciously am biased by G and I just didn't know it, right? Yeah. How do we know once I wash off all these other biases that I'm not still biased by some force G? Yeah. Okay. How about this? That's really good. Those are good answers. How about this? Let's say I go to Bakersfield College. Okay. And everyone that takes B9 with Professor Lanier, everybody walks out of holding the position of dualism. Dualism is the view, it's a very popular and historically important view, that I am not just my physical body, but I am my body and my mind. Yeah? Everyone who leaves this class believing in dualism. All right? Wouldn't you guys be inclined to believe that those who leave my class believing in dualism do so not because dualism is true, but because Professor Lanier brainwashed you into becoming a dualist? This is the charge. This is the sort of picture that gets painted when Fumerton sort of talks about how, sons and daughters of Democrats, when they turn 18, they register as Democrats, right? F in the chat for the brainwash. Yes, that is everyone get an F in the chat. I'm Fing in the chat. Pay respects for all this brainwashed duelists in here. Yeah. Okay. Wouldn't we all think, oh shit, everyone that leaves my class is doing so because, or leaves my class of duelists is because they've been persuaded by me. It's not that D isn't real. It's that Professor Lanier, it's not this. It's Professor Lanier giving you the belief in D. Yeah? Okay. Very possible. It is suspicious that people who go to Harvard don't believe in analytic synthetic distinction. People from Brown don't believe, and Stanford don't believe in free will. Yeah. People from NYU tend to be some version of a dualist, right? That's weird, right? That all these different institutional camps produce institutional belief. But there's something, okay, we could write, but how else do you explain this situation where everyone's a dualist after they leave my class? Why do you think it is? Exactly. With the different universities. So I don't know, right? And I don't think I have to necessarily, well, I have an idea, but I don't think that answering this question is essentially what I'm going to try to do. I think one of the crazy assumptions that this paper is making, and this is not a defeater for his defeater, right? Is that, man, how do you know that in this instance, so we're not talking Brown and determinism, no free will. We're not talking about Harvard synthetic analytic distinctions, right? We're not talking about dualism in NYU, B9, this class, right? How can you tell? Though this is going to go back to Kornblith, that all of you guys who believe in dualism do not believe in dualism because dualism is true, and instead you believe it because you've been brainwashed into believing it. So not considering any generalization, how do you individually show that dualism is a product of brainwashing or bias and not a product of properly functioning belief acquisition, right? To show that dualism is false, or better yet, belief in dualism does not come from the fact of dualism. This is something that that Kelly is begging us to do. And until we do that, right? Until we do that, then the disagreement, for what? Yeah, a lot of people are fucking wrong, but does that mean that dualism isn't the case and that I don't believe dualism for the right reason? I feel like some people believe just because of perfect. Yes, 100%, Jocelyn. That is 100%. Right? And so the puzzle here is, how do we decide that we're not falling for this bias? Right? To do that, you may, so I'm not trying to say yes, or I may totally believe, I think this is the best paper in the book, that and the Van Inwagen text, right? And I like the Kelly text, but this puzzle is so well written, and I feel equally strong about the Van Inwagen text, right? For you, and so I'm not trying to say that Fumerton is wrong. I may totally believe Fumerton here. But if you can show this, if you can show the brainwashing, then why can't you just as well show that dualism is actually false and that I did not get my belief about dualism from the facts of dualism? If you agree in front of you, Jocelyn, doesn't believe dualism because it's a fact, then how can you show that me, in particular, the guy in front of you, is somehow for sure biased by his professors that showed him dualism? Do you guys see the disconnect here? The evidence for the indoctrination claim is a generalization. But remember that everyone who has been a sticker so far, which is namely just, Venn and Wagon kind of, but Kelly, you're saying this generalization doesn't cut it for evidence. Instead, you have to be able to show why the belief is messed up in the first place. Yeah. But if you could do that, so potential problem there. I know I'm talking like kind of quick. I see I got like a little bit more than half the class. Who's left in the class left in the chat right now? Who's left? A little more than half of who's left in this class in the chat right now. Yeah, so you guys can like go back and rewatch that and try to make sense of what I'm saying. Another possible objection to the puzzle. So the puzzle may not be something we need to take serious, and this is based off of what, right? Oscar proposed a hypothetical claim that, let me see. What did you exactly say, Oscar? You said, would it even be possible for anyone to be completely unbiased? Yeah. You said, I can't see it anymore, whatever. You said, yeah, something along the lines of, is it really true that everyone isn't there some things that everyone agrees on? Yeah. Isn't it something? Aren't there some things that everyone can agree on? Is the disagreement in philosophy really so much different than the disagreement in mathematics? Right. And let me point something out to you guys that's been going on in this entire text. Agreement that Fumerton has brought up has been one in which is two-sided. The disagreement has been broken up into two sides. Republican, Democrats, foundationalist versus coherentivist. You guys don't need to know what any of this shit means, right? What else? What other things have been brought up in our class? Atheist versus theist. Right? What else? What other dichotomy? Externalist versus internalist. Yeah? Mathematical realism versus mathematical nominalism, right? Numbers are real. Numbers are just, right? They're just names, right? Really, when we look at the specific disagreements in the text that we've been given, how diverse can these opinions really be in the first place? Right? I'm sure almost everyone in our class is either a Republican or a Democrat, right? And so let's say we have 9 Democrats, we have a minority view, but how minority is the minority view? And if you guys, yeah, the Peace and Freedom Party, yes, here we go. Where are my Ron Paulers? We got any Ron Paulers in the chat? Any libertarians? Right. Now Marivelle. Well, yeah, there's lots of, yeah. Generally speaking, Right. Yeah, this is one of the keys. This is one of the politics is one of those philosophical realms in which, yeah, I mean, the diversity and opinion here doesn't seem to be so diverse. And Oscar, I think you're 1,000% correct, right? Um, there are some things in philosophy that most people don't agree, that most people don't disagree on. And that's like the funny nuance in this last little paragraph when he talks about all positive, remember the John I drew earlier? How minority was the negative position that not be? Almost overwhelming majority opinion, and the picture I drew earlier was not be. And so, even if the pool of philosophical ideas really is so big and really is occupied so evenly by minorities, there's still some majority ground to be held. As far as you guys know, there's only one weirdo that believes in possible worlds, and it's David Lewis, right? So Elgin and Van Inwagen probably don't agree on much, but they do both agree with the majority opinion that possible worlds don't exist. There's only one world, the actual world, our actual world. Yeah. And so, yeah. Why does it have to be binary? You're right, Oscar. It's not always binary. And he says this when he talks about the, here we go. Where is it? He quotes Descartes. Let's see here. Where is this quote from Descartes? Here we go. At the start of section 5, there has been a host of cases that are particularly difficult and interesting for those of us in academics, particularly in fields like philosophy. When in his discourse on method, right? You guys should read this. Descartes, who is the king dualist in philosophy, he's also the creator of the x and y axis. That's why I call it a Cartesian plane. Everything you do in geometry past the 7th grade just about is Rene Descartes. Yeah, he's one of the most important. We wouldn't have a scientific revolution per se if it wasn't. And he says this: there is nothing imaginable so strange or so little credible that it has not been maintained by some philosopher or other. Yeah. Yeah, this quote definitely plays into Fumerton's hand, that there's so many crazy ideas, right? But one way to argue against this is to say, yeah, there are lots of places in philosophy in which people are spread out in terms of the common ground they have, right? But when we talk more generally, like atheism versus theism, yeah, I mean, we find that yeah, it's not so binary, right? And be BS or an atheist, yeah, but my connection is unstable. Can you guys see me? All right, said my connection was unstable for a second. All right, Jane, let me get to you in a second, Jane. Right. Yeah, so, I mean, it just depends. Fumerton does not think it's so binary. I know a particular philosopher in town, spread out either. Yeah. That you end up finding these, in fact, at the university I went to graduate at KU Leuven, where I went to school at, right after I left, two researchers posted a picture. They made like a web. So they did, based off of a survey this guy, David Chalmers, put out to find out what experts are really believing at the moment. They made a web, and it was like, if you're on this side, right, and you think that God is real, and they made like a network of all the different beliefs. You're an externalist. If you're you're a realist about knowledge. If you're a realist about knowledge, you're probably a realist about numbers, right? And yeah, the study kind of shows, this particular survey is meant to ground this sort of belief that it's really not so diverse. That if you believe in one of these positions, you're probably in this large group of people that believe these other beliefs. Same thing over here. Yeah. So maybe one way out of the puzzle is to, so let me sum that up real quick before I jump to you, Jane. One way out of this puzzle is maybe making the argument that there's not so many credible views out there to hold within politics or philosophy. Another one is to point out how in fields like mathematics and fields like physics and stuff like this, that there is still so much disagreement between experts on anything that you would need to be an expert to disagree with, that the claim this long-lasting progress as we paint it in like this sort of like Platonic way, it's actually not there in the sciences at all. A good book to read, I mean, not for this paper because that'd be too much. Hold on. You guys are seeing my closet. These are very good books, right? If you want to see some really significant disagreements in what we call that certain science, right? Those are two very good ones to pick up. Also, a John Dupree book called On the Disorder of Things. That's also a very good one. So Jen, let me jump up to you. Right. The only common ground we can agree on is in any subject is the structure we've created for it. Very good, Jane. For which ironically can change the more we evidence. Yes, this is what this is about. 100%. That is very good, right? Very good. For people, however, talk about disagreement. For people that believe in that sort of mathematical realism, or that what we call logicism, right? That I've also kind of talked about in class. They are going to completely disagree with you on that, right? But hey, Jane, that is a very good comment. Yeah. If that happens, I mean, if Jane, if what you say is true, then yeah, maybe we're not reliable at all if our structures can change, right? If we can find more evidence against the shit we thought we had evidence for, right? So that no matter what topic it is, whatever topic it is, that there will always be many different positions. Very good, yes. So far, yes. And on even explaining why you're right, specifically correct, they are being hard-headed about it. That may very well be the case, Jocelyn. Being hard-headed is definitely a cognitive defect. It gets in the way of the truth. Okay. And so I'm going to offer one more possible objection to this paper. Okay. So if you're, I'm going to solve this problem by attacking this paper. Um, let's suppose that you think A. This is you guys. Big old foreheads. You guys think A. Everyone else here thinks not A. These are my not A's over here. Yeah. Okay, there you go. That's all my not A's. Right. So you have already established that. So let's accept what let's accept to some extent everything that Fumerton has said. You do not need to take them serious because even they don't agree with each other, right? The only thing they do agree with each other on is not A. And so the fact that you maintain A, despite everyone over here agreeing that not A, is that you find that one, A is the case, it's rational to believe A, and there's something going on with them that doesn't allow them to see A. They are possibly, as Jocelyn said, they are being hard-headed. Yeah. Now let's go back to the end of the Van Inwagen text, the one that we didn't write about for our first paper. What if intuitions are counted? They are counted as evidence. And so when Fumerton asks you, okay, so what evidence do you have that you are somehow, no matter how crazy the odds are, you are somehow a reliable philosopher when it comes to A? When he asks you to show you this evidence, you say, hey, I can't. Why? Because this kind of evidence is not forensic. It is purely intuitive. And everyone who reasons is going to believe in A for this same intuitive reason. All the physical facts plus this weird intuition about how these facts actually are. Yeah. If you go that route, then you kind of, you have an answer for, okay, what evidence do you have that you're not crazy? Well, I just know. My intuitions, so pay really close attention to me here. My intuitions are aimed at the truth. And since they generally give me the truth, I feel comfortable trusting them in the face of disagreement regarding A. Right? Yeah. I trust that I have this intuitive compass inside of me. How does what you said about the truth not being a private? Yeah, that's a big problem, Marivelle. Right. That's a problem. That's what I said. I mean, I've mentioned this phrase before, like a few times in this class, that there are some answers that just kind of feel like they're kissing your sister. It's like, this is a joke, but it's also like highlighting exactly what I am trying to get at. It's like, or kissing your cousin. That's probably a little better than kissing your sister. but you just kind of get that, there was something just not satisfying about that, right? Like I wanted something different. Yeah, it's like a tie game in baseball, right? That's actually where I heard this phrase from, kissing your sister. Tie. They said tie games in baseball are like kissing your sister. Nobody really wins. Yeah, but it is an answer. Your faculties are aimed at the truth, not by some sort of social manipulation, not by some sort of, you know, uh, institutional bias that's been wired into you in some way, right? But you think that your faculties are aimed towards the truth, and that although you happen to be one of the very few people that obtain it, you just have that intuitive confirmation like, oh yes, I do have it. In the same way, like when you find your keys, oh man, I don't know where my keys are, and then you finally look in between a couch and you go, oh yes, that's where they were. It's like everything just clicks. That yes, oh my, it's almost like you're remembering. That has some deep philosophical stuff entailed in that, right? um yeah, if we would have kept this last paper, so if we wouldn't have cut, yeah, if we would have kept a fifth paper, our next paper would have probably been asking the question, do intuitions count as evidence? And if you think that intuitions do count as evidence, there's lots of crazy benefits you get. You get knowledge about a lot of stuff. You get the reality of knowledge, you get reality of math, you get a really deep theory about ethics and politics, and a lot of epistemology comes with it, but you also got to believe some way out stuff, right? Yeah. It feels like talking circles basically. Like we get to one point, yes, 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 yes. So we get to one point, but then another problem gets in the way. Percent right. You're 100% right. Yeah. But and I'm gonna, like, as this is like likely the last time you guys see my face for class. I want to really point something out to you. Okay, this is like a lesson from doing some hard philosophy, right? I mean this when I say that there is a deep problem in our education system and in academic fields, in the academic realm of science in general. That when we sit down and we get these way out. So Jane, I'm echoing exactly what you said earlier. Okay, exactly what you said earlier. We get these kind of facts or these sentences in our textbooks, and we read them and we memorize them and we kind of make sense of how the literature goes down. But there is deep on the bottom of every single claim that is made within science about the facts, or about, especially about the methodology we employ within science, that is riddled by philosophical disagreement. And there's something wrong when we are getting crazy ass textbooks that we memorize stuff as facts, and then 9 months later, these facts somehow expire, even though these facts weren't supposed to be about anything that would expire in 9 months, right? In circles about the foundation of how we acquire knowledge of anything, right? This is thousands of years of just trying to understand how we should be understanding the world, right? And then this is kind of what science is supposed to do. But as we would read in a book like this, right? If you really study what common sense science was about, right, and what the scientific revolution was about, and how we adopt scientific theories now at a sort of axiomatic level, right? Man, it's insane that we get, yeah, when we just get, I don't know. I mean, this is that, right? Dualism is false, right? You are your brain, right? This happened to the Neanderthal, to keep in line with with what we're reading right now. Read things, knowledge changes all the time, and I think it's yeah, man. I I think knowledge. I don't know. I am of the mind. So I will say what I think philosophically, at least in some point. I'm trying my best to not influence you guys in terms of what I think philosophically. But I will say this, I do think, well, not only is it possible that someone believes only the truth out there, and that when people disagree with that person, those people, that person may be David Lewis, it may be Rene Descartes, it may be crazy ass alchemist Isaac Newton, right? Shit, it may be Marivelle, right? Whoever, I mean, I think it's totally possible that this person knows everything and that they figure out everything and that everything they believe is the truth. But to act like things in academia are like, oh, this is just the fact, or oh, well, you don't believe in statistics, you don't believe in science, you don't believe in this. It's like, man, like, um, people who are in these fields don't believe in most of it. And so, Elizabeth, is there really a foundation? There might be. If Marivelle is right, then whatever Marivelle's foundation is, that is the foundation, and we should believe it. But this takes weird philosophical, and theoretical talk to get to this sort of place. Yeah. So, what does Fumerton really think, Oscar? Uh, Fumerton thinks that we all just have different starting point or environment, and that it's not really a matter of truth per se. It's more of a matter of where you just happen to be at the time. Yeah. Um, does Fumerton think? Someone give me a thumbs up if you can see what I'm saying. Yes, period. 100% Miro. Fumerton thinks, yeah, that this is a defeater. But I don't believe that Fumerton actually thinks that his position about this being a defeater can stand up to disagreement. Like a journey, yeah, it's a journey, except it's a really nauseating and irritating one, at least when we're honest. Yeah. Making sense of the world is so god dang easy. It's easy to make sense of the world, but finding out if whether the world actually is, that's not easy at all. Yeah. That's not easy at all. So I want to give you guys this option too when you write this paper. Okay. If you guys find Fumerton's argument so goddamn good, you guys can totally come to the conclusion in your paper that there is no solving Fumerton's puzzle. Right? You could totally come to the conclusion to philosophically show that you are reliable when you know that most philosophers aren't. That is it's if you feel like you need to submit to Fumerton, that's totally good, right? Um, yeah, that's a totally tenable position. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I said, this class, philosophy classes, at least not until you're an upper division student. Philosophy classes should not be giving you answers; they should be giving you questions, right? I am super opinionated on disagreement. I'm super opinionated about the Fullerton paper. I'm extremely opinionated about the Van Inwagen text. Um, I'm opinionated on almost anything besides the England text or the Eldman text. Um, yeah, I think maybe I'm just missing some shit with the Eldman text. I don't know. Right. Any questions before I shut this thing down? If you guys don't understand, I'm gonna try to get a few drops out of this. If you don't understand anything that went on, then I really recommend you that anything that we talked about here, I really recommend you maybe just describing Fumerton's view and maybe giving a section on why it is impossible that he's wrong. Yeah. So we don't have an answer. We can answer with a question. No. Yeah, so don't answer with a question. Sorry. You do have to answer the prompt. So the prompt is asking you. All right, let's go back to this. The prompt is asking you. Right. If most philosophers suffer from some cognitive malfunction and almost all hold false beliefs, how can we take our own philosophical positions? You actually cannot take yourselves to be reliable. That would be the kind of like submission to Fumerton I'm talking about. Yeah, you can't take yourself to be reliable. You can't do it. You're not reliable, right? And you know, yeah, you can't. If you, I mean, I think you might be reliable, uh, but you could totally argue that you can't be. That you not being reliable is totally an answer to this question. Keep in mind though, if you don't think you're reliable, right? If you don't think you're reliable, and you don't think that any philosophical position is justified to hold, well then all of our sciences end up getting washed away. Yeah. Um, at least in terms of knowledge, right? Especially given that all methodology comes from philosophical practice. Can you send exactly what the prompt is? Yeah, it's Jane. It's already on Canvas. It's already on Canvas. Yeah. Any other questions? I'm gonna text. Hold on. Well, you guys, I'm gonna reply to a message real quick. What do you guys type? Can we also talk about the other professionals? 100%. Yeah, you totally can. Right. In fact, well, that's like most of Fumerton's talk is literally most. I mean, that's most of his. That's most of his paper. Um, Jane, tell me if you got my message. Yeah, 100%. You can also talk about other professionals, or other disciplines rather. Yeah. The archaeology one with the Neanderthals, that's like, man, it's such a good example because it's so easy to get. And it's really easy to like kind of understand why someone would think the Neanderthal died off. And then it's also really reasonable and easy to understand why somebody would think that the Neanderthal evolved on, right? Um, okay. Any questions? Any other questions? Uh, Abigail, you can, yeah, you can message me whenever. Whenever is a good time for office hours. Right. At BC, I don't have like an official office. So a little backdrop to the office hours. At BC, I don't have an office, but at CSUB, I do have an office. And so like at CSUB, I'm having like phone call, like office hours Tuesday, especially since it's by phone. You can just message me whenever. Yeah. Are you going to get feedback on the paragraph? No. Yeah. So no, I'm not. I'm going to tell you guys, like I said, most of you got that first question right. So the first question, why do I not have to take philosophers and their opinions serious when they disagree with mine about philosophy? Why? Because most of them are wrong, right? And since most of them are, it's most likely anyone that I talk to is going to be wrong as well, right? They're going to have to be that exceptional kind of person, but since they disagree with me, I really don't think it's them, right? And so what's the problem from that answer number one? The problem from that is going to be, well, I can't trust myself either because I'm also a philosopher. Yeah. And I have a lot of philosophical beliefs, right? I think science gives me the truth. I think numbers are real. I think it's wrong to eat animals. I think Bush did not, that's not a philosophical belief. I think we should not have um, gone to war in Afghanistan. What other? I think beauty is real, right? Um, I think psychoanalysis is possible. These are all philosophical beliefs. So, like, why should I believe any of that stuff when I know that most beliefs about those stuff are wrong? And I'm the kind of guy that would hold some of those wrong beliefs. I'm a philosopher, right? Yeah. Right. That's that out of the fire out of the frying pan into the fire, right? Almost no one got that number one. That number two right. Marivelle, you almost got it, but you were also wrong. Jane, I don't know if you're still watching. I sent you a link or a message for your question about the prompt. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? I still see that there's people waiting, or there's still people. Man, it keeps going from 10 to 11. Okay. If not, let's get one last F in the chat. Right. And I will see you guys. I'm still waiting. I don't want to. Okay, I'll give until I close my closet and come back. Okay. Here's my Fortnite hammer, pickaxe. One of my students from 2 semesters got me. Okay. Big F's. Like and subscribe. I'm just joking. Don't subscribe. Okay, so I will see you guys later. Message me, Abigail. If you need to have office hours with me, just message me. All right, see ya, Hector. Man, you little silent. That's a big F for Hector for being so silent. All right, I'll see you guys.